I would say people started talking about my family, more about my family to me, probably when I was 14, 15 years old, 13 years old, somewhere around there. Uh, my father, who was a boss in Chicago, he was a capo, very, very powerful man, very serious man, decided that at some point decided he wanted to bring his family, more of his family into the life. Uh, my uncle was part of the life. My father brought my uncle into the life, brought myself and my brother into the life. And with me, it was different because I didn't want anything to do with that life. I didn't enjoy being around it. And the reason being is because my father was a hard, very hard man to get along with. And seeing him as my father that way, I did not want to be around him in any other manner than just being his son. And so I kind of fought tooth and nail to try to keep myself away from that. But unfortunately, my father had different plans. So, but I've never, anybody who knows me or anybody knows what I've lived knows I did not want to be part of that life. And again, it wasn't that life wasn't glorious where I grew up at. It was cool to be part of that life. But unfortunately, like I said, because of my dad being the way he was, it wasn't attractive to me. In fact, like I said, I wanted to get as far away from it as I could. And the more I tried to get away and pull away, the more my father refused to let me. As a kid, we talked about going to college, as most kids do. And so I thought that was my plan. But unfortunately, I was told point blank that if you want to go to college, you're going to stay right here and go to a college and live at home. So that kind of blew my plans to get away from my dad.
So we have family in Chicago. They live in Skokie, Illinois. Is that close to where you guys were? How far was it?
That's very close to where I'm at. Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so your dad is this figure that you're obviously growing up with. He's your father, and he has this other life, and now he gets you into the business. How does that happen? I heard on our friend Michael Francise's show, you were on that show. Great interview. I encourage you guys to watch it. But you guys were, talking about this, and you started, correct me if I'm wrong, working the books, right? The financial side of things.
Yes.
So how did that happen?
Well, I was told that I was the smart one in the family. Educational wise, I was the smart one in the family. So I kind of got drafted into doing that. And the mistake my father made is, and he only made it once to me my entire life, was asking me if I wanted to do it. And when he asked me, I had the opportunity to say no, because I didn't get that opportunity very often. So I told him no. And he didn't like that. He was very angry about it. And a couple of days later, he basically told me, let's go, because we lived in a 3-flat and my grandparents lived upstairs. It was a 3 apartment building. My grandparents lived upstairs, but my grandmother had an extra bedroom, and that's where we did the paperwork at. So I got whistled up there. Let's go. You're going to do it. So the asking me from there on in never happened again. Now I was told what I'm going to do. So that was the first step of that. And then it was, it took me a while to learn how to do that because, it was more complicated than I thought.
So you're saying this was when you were a kid. Were you like in high school, or because you were talking about college? So I imagine you're a little bit older, right?
No, high school.
High school. Okay.
It was high school. Yeah. No.
Did the people who knew you like in high school, like your friends, or even people who weren't your friends, like just people you saw in school, did they know who your family was, who your father was?
In grammar school, yes. In high school, yes. Because the high school we went to, a Catholic high school right there in the town I grew up in, a lot of people came from a lot of different areas to go to that school. And in the area that I grew up in, the towns around us were also, mostly Italian, and there was a lot of organized crime, guys' fathers, guys' uncles that were in that life. So I didn't realize it when I went to high school that people knew it. I didn't realize it until after high school, when I still see people I grew up in high school, and now they tell me things that they didn't tell me much in high school. I didn't discuss many things with people. I kind of kept my kept closed, my mouth closed, kept to myself. And that's how I've always been. But, and there were other guys, like I said, there was other guys in school whose fathers were involved, in that life. And, I got along with everybody. But now, like when you hindsight, when you go back and look, there was a lot of people who did know but didn't talk about it, didn't bring it up, didn't.
Is the Chicago mafia, like, was it just like how the New York mafia is portrayed, and in terms of, not in terms of the violence, but in terms of the lifestyle, the cars, the women, the money, the power? Is that what it was like?
It not really. In Chicago, it was different. There's only one family in Chicago, and there were different crews, and different crews handled things different ways. But my father and the people that he was around, everything was about blending in. Everything was about not drawing attention to yourself or attraction to yourself. So that's how we lived our lives. No fancy cars, no fancy clothes. That's how we lived our life. That's how we're raised, we're taught. And, it makes more sense to me to live that way than it is to be flashy. But that's, you're talking about two different cities, two different ways of doing business. In New York, it was cool to be a wise guy. In Chicago, if you were one, nobody needed to know you were one. People figured it out for themselves.